I am truly lucky. After all, I can give my beloved daughter a job that suits her bright future. The manager in front of me, Mark, said this while grinning at me. When I said nothing, he continued speaking. Your job will be taken over by my daughter, so you might as well quit immediately. It seems I've been set up by this man. Moreover, he's planning to steal the $30 million contract I secured and claim it for himself and his allies. At that moment, I was shaking with anger, feeling as though I might explode. Yet, it was also true that there was nothing I could do about his ruthless treatment. I had no choice but to accept the punishment handed to me. However, a few months later, the situation took a complete turn. Indeed, those who try to take what belongs to others in an underhanded way will eventually face divine retribution. Mark, the man who brought me down, ultimately met his downfall. His failure stemmed from not truly understanding his own daughter. My name is Ryan, and I'm 32 years old. I work in the sales department of a pharmaceutical company. I joined this company straight after graduating from university, so it's been almost 10 years now. Although I struggled to adapt at first, I feel like I've really gotten the hang of my job over time. In the pharmaceutical industry, new innovations are made every day. I find this world constantly stimulating and fulfilling as I continue to learn new things. My ultimate goal is to become an MR. This aspiration hasn't changed since I started working here. In fact, you could say I joined this company with the sole intention of becoming an MR. An MR's role is to provide healthcare professionals with information about the effectiveness and safety of their company's products, aiming to have these adopted in medical practices. It's an important job that has the potential to change what medicines are available in hospitals and pharmacies. There may even be lives saved by the new medications being developed. Knowing that my work contributes to society in such a meaningful way fills me with pride and motivates me even more. That said, I still have a long way to go before achieving my goal. For now, I'm giving it my all in the sales department. This job is far from easy, and the reality was that I couldn't secure any contracts at the beginning. No matter how enthusiastically I pitched or how clearly I tried to explain our products, nothing worked. In fact, I was often turned away at the door. But I didn't give up. I guess I've always been a tenacious person by nature. With sheer determination, I kept walking from place to place, pitching tirelessly. I also realized that to effectively communicate the value of our products, I needed to have an in-depth understanding of them myself. So, I dedicated myself to studying our products thoroughly every day. Thanks to my efforts, I eventually earned the title of manager. Receiving that promotion felt like validation for all the hard work I had put in. While I've been fully immersed in my work and leading a fulfilling life, I've recently been presented with an incredible opportunity. It's for the newly established overseas business department in our company. Much to my surprise, the CEO, Mr. Carter, personally approached me with the offer to head this department. Are you really entrusting me with the new department? The unexpected proposal filled me with joy, as though I were on cloud nine. After hearing more, I learned that Mr. Carter highly valued my language skills. To be honest, I've always felt that my proficiency in English was a strength. I've always enjoyed learning and discovering foreign languages. This time, I was thrilled to finally have an opportunity to put those skills to use. With the launch of this department, other members were also brought together. Some were familiar faces, while others were people I hadn't interacted with much. Even so, I made an effort to treat everyone equally and help each person shine in their own way. Among them, a female colleague named Sarah, who I was responsible for mentoring, seemed to particularly appreciate my guidance. Ryan, I really admire your work ethic. I want to become like you as soon as possible. I'll do my best. Sarah would often say this to me. When you're respected like this by a colleague, there's no way you can slack off. To meet their expectations, I pushed myself even harder at work. I believed that by tackling even the smallest tasks with full effort, I could set an example and become a better leader for my team. Then, one day, my hard work finally paid off. I managed to secure a major $30 million contract. The client was an American pharmaceutical company. They proposed working with us on the joint development of a new drug. However, at first, they didn't seem very enthusiastic about the idea. While it wasn't an outright rejection, their response felt lukewarm at best. But I couldn't afford to let this opportunity slip away. Determined to persuade them, I held numerous discussions with the client, presenting our case repeatedly. As a result, they gradually came to see the value we could bring. When I announced the successful contract to my department, everyone was overjoyed. Some praised me with remarks like, "As expected of you." Others were motivated, saying, "Let's follow in your footsteps and work harder." Some even approached me, asking, "Please teach us the secrets to successful negotiations." This major success significantly boosted the morale of our team. I could feel a growing sense of unity within the group, which made me feel both encouraged and determined to work even harder. However, despite appearances, not everything in our new department was going smoothly. The truth is, there was one person who wasn't pleased with my efforts. That person was Mark, the head of our department. Initially, we didn't have a bad relationship, but over time, he began to target me relentlessly. Mark could be described as a complicated person. Despite being in the position of a department head, he harbored a deep inferiority complex about his education. It likely stemmed from the fact that he only graduated high school before entering the workforce. He seemed to have a particular dislike for university graduates, highly educated individuals, or those with advanced skills. Above all, he appeared to genuinely resent people who were proficient in languages, a skill he completely lacked. For example, whenever we casually used business terms in conversations, he would snap, "We're Japanese, so speak Japanese." I often used business jargon unconsciously, which seemed to irritate him even more. Once, he went so far as to say, "Don't act cool, you're Japanese. Stop showing off, it's gross." These unreasonable remarks obviously made me angry. But since he was my superior, there wasn't much I could do but let his comments slide. One day, while I was working on some documents in the office, a colleague called out to me, "Ryan. Sorry, but can you come here quickly?" The way they called my name and their tone carried a sense of urgency. Wondering if there was some sort of trouble, I left my desk with a slight sense of worry. "What's wrong?" I rushed over to the colleague who had called me. It turned out they had received a call from abroad and couldn't communicate effectively, so they wanted me to handle it. Aside from that, there didn't seem to be any major trouble. Relieved, I took the call and addressed the issue. As soon as I hung up, the colleague looked at me apologetically. "I'm sorry for troubling you, Ryan," they said, looking a bit downcast. But when I smiled and replied, "It was no problem at all, nothing to worry about," they seemed relieved. After seeing them off, I returned to my desk. I was about to resume my work when I noticed something slightly off about my computer screen. Something felt different. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what, but there was a subtle, unsettling sense that something wasn't right. Leaving the screen on while I was away had been a mistake in itself. Thinking it was an urgent matter, I had rushed off and forgotten to lock my computer. This meant that after I left, anyone could have accessed it. Perhaps someone had tampered with my computer. With all the critical data stored on it, I was filled with anxiety. Trying to keep calm, I glanced cautiously in Mark's direction. The moment our eyes met, he gave me a sly, unpleasant smile. Later that day, as I was about to leave the office after work, Mark approached me. In a cheerful tone, he said, "Something interesting is going to happen tomorrow," before walking away with a cryptic smile. Of course, I had no idea what he was talking about. By the time I thought to ask, he had already disappeared. Feeling puzzled by his words, I headed home. That night, with some extra free time, I stayed up late studying for the AMR certification exam. By the time sleep overtook me, I had completely forgotten the odd sense of unease from earlier. The next morning, as soon as I arrived at the office, I was summoned by Mr. Carter. I couldn't help but feel excited. Perhaps our overseas department had achieved a major milestone. With high hopes, I headed to the CEO's office. "Excuse me," I said, opening the door. The moment Mr. Carter saw me, he shouted, "What have you done?" Stunned, I froze in place. He was visibly furious. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't understand." "What happened?" I asked nervously. With a thunderous expression, he replied, "There's been a data breach." Apparently, the materials I had prepared had been leaked to an external party. The client had discovered this and was furious, threatening not only to terminate the contract but also to sue for damages. "I didn't do it," I declared firmly, knowing I had no involvement whatsoever. There wasn't even a 1% chance I could have made such a mistake. However, Mr. Carter firmly said, "That's impossible." He explained that the leak was traced back to my email address and had occurred yesterday. How could that be? I mentally reviewed my actions from the previous day. Then I remembered stepping away from my desk briefly when a colleague called me. When I returned, I had felt something was off about my computer. It must have been tampered with during that short time. Realizing this, I wanted to explain that I wasn't responsible. However, the fact remained that I had forgotten to lock my computer, creating the opportunity for this to happen. I had no excuse to offer. Mr. Carter's anger escalated, and eventually, he said, "You may need to take responsibility by resigning." In essence, he was telling me I was being fired. Feeling utterly crushed, I left the office. As I stepped into the hallway, overwhelmed with despair, I noticed a man standing there. It was Mark. He smirked and said, "What's wrong? You look pale." I told him about my dismissal, still baffled by everything that had happened. Feigning shock, he exaggeratedly replied, "Oh no. You really should lock your computer next time." How did he know I had forgotten to lock my computer? Suspicious, I asked him directly. He brushed it off, saying, "Did I say that? Maybe you're so shaken by the news that you misheard me." His evasive response only deepened my unease. Ignoring my growing frustration, he continued speaking. "But really, I'm so lucky. I can give my beloved daughter a job that's perfect for her, starting with that $30 million contract. It's just right for her future." I couldn't believe my ears. What could this possibly mean? Was he really planning to hand over the $30 million contract I secured to his daughter, who had just returned from studying abroad? As if to confirm my suspicions, he continued speaking. "My daughter, Emily, will be taking over your position, so you might as well quit right away," he said. In that moment, I realized I had been set up by Mark. It was clear he was behind the data breach. That's why he smugly told me yesterday, "Something interesting is going to happen." Everything started to make sense. You're the one who leaked the information, aren't you?" I asked. "Who knows? What are you talking about?" Mark replied, half smirking as he feigned ignorance. I wanted to report this to Mr. Carter immediately, but Mark stopped me. "Do you have proof?" "Without evidence, how are you going to pin this on me?" "Poor you," he said mockingly. Then, with a grin, he added, "Better luck next time," before walking away. He was right. Without any proof, no one would believe me. In the end, there was nothing I could do, and I was forced to leave the company. 1 week before my resignation, Emily joined the company, effectively replacing me. On her first day, she approached me and said with a sneer, "You're still here? Don't get in the way of my work." I couldn't help but think. Like father, like daughter. Emily had strikingly dyed hair, meticulously applied makeup, and a strong perfume that lingered wherever she walked. Sarah kindly advised her, since we handle pharmaceuticals, it might be better to avoid strong perfume. But Emily clicked her tongue in irritation and snapped, "Mind your own business, old lady." Her attitude was defiant, to say the least. On top of that, She spent work hours browsing social media on the company's computer, leaving her colleagues exasperated. 1 week later, the day of my resignation arrived. After tidying up my desk and ensuring everything was spotless, I left the office. As I stepped outside, Sarah ran after me. "Ryan, did something happen with Mark?" she asked. Since I was leaving, I saw no harm in explaining the situation. After hearing everything, Sarah was furious. "That's absolutely outrageous!" she exclaimed, clearly enraged. I nodded weakly and replied, "It's terrible, but there's nothing I can do now." "However," Sarah said resolutely, "I won't give up. I'll find a way to get the security camera footage. Once we have it, we'll know who's behind this," she declared with determination. Her words lifted a small weight off my chest, and I felt a glimmer of hope. As I left the company that day, I felt a bit lighter, thanks to Sarah's promise. A week after my resignation, while job hunting, I received an unexpected call. It was from the very company I had secured the $30 million contract with. When I asked about the purpose of the call, they said, "If you're not working anywhere right now, why not join us?" The unexpected offer filled me with excitement. However, I was currently studying to earn a certification. I was searching for a workplace where I could finally achieve my goal of becoming an MR. When I explained this, they assured me that they respected my ambitions. They even mentioned that they would consider promoting me to a Mr. position in the future. With such promising prospects, I decided to join the company without hesitation. After transferring, I became even more determined, dedicating myself to my studies at home to achieve my certification. Despite the difficult circumstances leading up to this change, starting fresh felt incredibly liberating. One day, during this new chapter of my life, I received a call from someone I never wanted to hear from again. Of course, it was Mark. The moment I answered, he shouted angrily, "Hey! What's the meaning of this?" When I asked, "What do you mean?" Mark explained that the pharmaceutical company had called to complain, saying, "We're receiving emails in incomprehensible languages from the new representative. Where is the previous person? Shouldn't you ask your daughter about that?" I thought honestly. I had already left the company and had no involvement. However, Mark insisted. My daughter said she responded properly in English. "There's no issue on our end." He then barked, "Check the email exchanges right now," and abruptly hung up. Suppressing a sigh, I opened the forwarded emails. The problem was immediately clear. Her emails made no sense at all. It wasn't just a matter of poor email etiquette, her English was so chaotic that effective communication was impossible. So, the rumors about her were true. At that moment, everything finally clicked for me. After my resignation, I had briefly spoken with a former colleague about Emily. According to him, Emily could barely speak English. She studied abroad for a year in the US but mostly stayed around Japanese people, so her English didn't improve. She even said herself that she got by on vibes, they explained. At the time, I was skeptical, but the emails left no doubt. On top of that, it turned out later that her strong perfume caused issues as well. Despite Sarah's earlier advice, Emily had continued wearing it, and the CEO of the pharmaceutical company was outraged, finding it incredibly disrespectful. It seems that in this matter, Mark urged Emily, "You need to apologize immediately." However, she didn't appear concerned at all. Instead, she casually replied, "It's fine." I even took a photo with one of their employees as a keepsake and posted it on social media. Unfortunately, that very post led to an even bigger disaster. In the photo, Emily was holding a document with sensitive company data clearly visible. The data leak was complete. Mark panicked, but Emily didn't seem to grasp the gravity of the situation. Amidst the chaos, I received another call from Mark. "Fix this immediately. This is a disaster. You can handle it, right?" he shouted, his tone still as demanding as ever. I found it astonishing how demanding and arrogant he was, despite asking for a favor. After all, he was the one who had set me up and gotten me fired. There was no reason for me to help him, none at all. How could he expect me to go along with such a self-serving request? Furious, I replied coldly, "You and your daughter seem to be quite skilled at leaking information. I'm no longer involved, so have Emily handle it." With that, I ended the call. Emily's string of mistakes continued to pile up, resulting in countless complaints to the company. Ultimately, the pharmaceutical company terminated the $30 million contract. To make matters worse, Emily's photo went viral, sparking public outrage. The situation escalated to the point where Emily was sued by the pharmaceutical company, causing a major uproar. It was only natural for the incident to be picked up by the news. Reporters began gathering outside the company headquarters daily. Meanwhile, Sarah delivered the final blow. She had managed to obtain the security camera footage from the day of the data breach. When Sarah showed the footage to Mr. Carter, it clearly captured Mark tampering with my computer during the brief moment I had stepped away. The video made it undeniably clear what had happened at the time. Coincidentally, it was the exact same time the emails had been sent. With mounting issues and an avalanche of complaints, the company couldn't handle the chaos. In no time, it collapsed entirely. Both Mark and Emily found themselves unemployed. Reportedly, they were hounded by the media even after the company's closure, unable to leave their home. Emily suggested fleeing to the US, but Mark dismissed the idea, saying, "Neither of us can speak English." Meanwhile, I was thriving in my new role at the pharmaceutical company. Work was going well, and my studies for Mr. certification were progressing smoothly. With the date of the MR certification exam approaching, I was living fulfilling days while steadily preparing for the test. One day, I received a call from Sarah. She was also job hunting after the company's collapse, but it seemed she was struggling to find a suitable position and was deeply troubled by it. She reached out to me, asking for some advice. So, I decided to meet her for dinner that evening to talk through her concerns. Over the meal, we discussed her challenges, and I listened attentively to what she had to say. "Whenever I mention the name of my former workplace, I get rejected immediately," she said. It seemed the company's reputation had deteriorated far beyond what I had imagined. This was clearly making her job search much more difficult. It was a tough situation, no doubt about it. Thinking about how I could help her, I started considering what I could do to support her in finding a solution. After all, Sarah was the one who exposed Mark's wrongdoing and cleared my name. She fought for my honor, and I felt there must be something I could do for her in return. I suggested that she consider applying to my current pharmaceutical company. Her face lit up immediately. "Really? Getting a recommendation from you feels like a dream. Can I truly count on your help?" she said with excitement. Her joyful expression filled me with determination. "It's my turn to help," I thought as I nodded firmly. I recommended Sarah to my company, highlighting her intelligence and capabilities. Thanks to her strong skills and determination, she was successfully hired. Now, she has become my trusted partner at work. Her efficiency and ability to excel were quickly recognized, and she earned the respect of everyone around her. Still, she often says, "Ryan, I've always admired you. I love how you approach life." Every time, her words make me blush with pride and gratitude. Meanwhile, Mark and Emily eventually moved to the US. But of course, it was Mark. His inability to communicate in English was so severe that nothing seemed to go well for him. There was even an incident where he snapped at a cashier, shouting, "I'm Japanese. It's normal for me not to speak English." Nearby, a Japanese bystander calmly advised him, "We are in the US. If you're living here, perhaps you should study English." When I heard this story, I could vividly picture Mark's indignant reaction. It was just so typical of him. As for me, I continued dedicating my spare time to studying and finally obtained my MR certification. The moment my long-held dream became a reality, I was overcome with emotion, tears streaming down my face as I felt my years of effort had paid off. Becoming an MR was everything I had hoped for, but it was also more challenging than I imagined. The role required extensive expertise, came with strict quotas, and demanded relentless effort. Despite the difficulties, I found immense satisfaction in my work. Doctors and nurses at the hospitals I visited would often say, "We trust you, Ryan." It made me incredibly happy. That sense of trust gave me a profound sense of purpose. Recently, I've been receiving more compliments on my ability to mentor and guide others at work. It's likely that earning my certification deepened my knowledge significantly. This gave me the confidence to trust my own way of thinking. Many colleagues aspiring to become MRs have asked me for study tips. Having studied independently, I understand how tough it can be to navigate the process alone. The challenge of staying motivated and finding effective study methods is something I know all too well. That's why I decided to accept their request. As a result, I now host study sessions for anyone interested, with the added purpose of helping to mentor and develop younger colleagues. By increasing the number of people who can become MRs, it might ultimately contribute to improving someone's health. This thought keeps me motivated even during my busiest days. One evening after work, Sarah invited me out to celebrate my Mr. certification. We went to a cozy bar and enjoyed lively conversation. Throughout the night, she repeatedly said, "Congratulations," which made me feel incredibly appreciated and proud. As we talked, the conversation naturally drifted toward work. I casually mentioned something about my job. But she suddenly frowned and said, "This is personal time. No work talk allowed, it's banned." Her expression and tone were so cute and amusing that I couldn't help but laugh out loud. At that moment, I realized something. Being with Sarah brought me a sense of peace. I had always kept my composure and hidden my stress, no matter how tough things got. But with her, I felt completely relaxed. What was this feeling? To be honest, I wasn't entirely sure what it meant. Sarah was an important colleague, a teammate, and a partner in the truest sense. That wouldn't change. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that there might be something more. For now, though, I chose not to overthink it. I simply knew that I enjoyed being with her, and that was enough. Looking back at everything that had happened, I could confidently say that my work life was going well. In fact, at my current company, I had managed to secure a $50 million contract. I was fortunate to be surrounded by great colleagues, making my workdays fulfilling and enjoyable. Still, I had come to realize that success wasn't about the numbers. What truly mattered was treating clients with sincerity and recognizing the impact of our work on others. After all, the comfort and conveniences we enjoy today are thanks to someone else's hard work. That's a truth I never want to forget. I also want to cherish the people working alongside me. No one can achieve everything alone. I hope to live by trusting and supporting those around me, helping each other along the way. That, I believed, was the most important lesson of all.